My name is
Okay, this is episode 410, Winner, which is written by myself, Peter Gould, and Thomas Schnauz, and directed by Adam Bernstein. I'm Peter Gould, the co-creator and executive producer of the show.
And I'm Thomas Schnauz, co-writer of this episode.
Melissa Bernstein, executive producer.
I'm Larry Benjamin, one of the re-recording mixers on this show.
And I'm Thomas Golubic, the music supervisor.
And I'm Chris McCaleb, one of the editors on the show, and I edited this episode.
And you did a hell of a job.
Is it true that this episode has more cuts than any other Better Call Saul episode?
It certainly has more minutes than any other.
Okay.
By the transitive quality of cuts.
This is the longest episode we've ever done of either show, which scared the hell out of me. And in fact, we had to, we struggled to get it down under an hour.
That's true. It was very difficult, which sounds crazy, but it was a huge struggle to get a couple of minutes out to get it under an hour.
It really was. It really was.
This is such a fun scene.
Yes, we're back in time. This is Jimmy getting his, he's a lawyer now.
And Brandon Hampton, how great!
Oh,
what a great job did he do singing? In this.
No exaggeration. I laughed more this day with him singing. with him singing
this song.
I couldn't hold it.
And I know we talked about it on the podcast, but it is amazing how out he is and how out of tune and out of rhythm Brandon was, but it was done increasingly intentionally to make it as awkward as possible, which I really enjoyed.
This was sadly not a song he was familiar with, which showed his age.
It's coming back, though. There's always some kind of remix.
Yeah.
I think Brandon could bring it back.
Hey, buddy, you're not leaving already, are you?
Yeah. Jimmy, it's been great fun. Really, it has, but I've got early meetings.
Come on, 10 minutes. Just 10 more minutes.
Jimmy.
10? You can do that.
Jimmy.
You cannot leave. I'm up next.
Oh.
Yeah, if you leave now, tomorrow you're going to go to work, and people are going to tell you how great my performance was. You're never going to forgive yourself for missing it.
All right, Jimmy, I'll stay.
Great.
A little while.
You won't regret it. Now, come on, this is me.
Okay. I don't want to talk about things we've gone through, though it's hurting me. Now it's history. Get up. No.
Now, Tom, how did these two songs? There are two songs in this sequence. How did they get picked?
Are you talking to me or Thomas Gould?
I say Tom when I'm talking to you,
okay.
And Thomas when I'm talking to Thomas.
He's the music guy, but I did pick the song.
You picked him, yeah.
I only picked the song after the script writing process had happened. So, Thomas, is there a challenge here?
Yeah, we just picked the songs, and then we said, hey,
go get them.
This is like trying to reverse engineer the end of Thelma and Louise. And I knew that you guys throwing this out there and being so key to the story meant there was no wiggle room. There was really no plan B, which was absolutely terrifying and probably one of the lowest points of my career as a music supervisor in trying to, not knowing whether this was all going to work out in the end. It was absolutely terrifying. And exceedingly complicated. But that said, look at this. I mean, it's just magic. It's worth every bit of effort. It's just gorgeous.
And we've got the lead singer of Spinal Tap up there singing
and
for
stealing the mic.
That's great.
Incredible.
So when we're filming this, these guys have earwigs in, and they're hearing the music. So as we're filming it, the rest of us in the audience here and behind the cameras, we're just hearing these guys sing.
And I just want to give a shout out to Joey Reinisch, who is my assistant editor on this season and co-edited episode 8. He made that karaoke video. He did all of that, put together stock footage under Tom's direction, and
they're actually really
tutelage.
Hilarious. And I'm sad you don't get to see as much of them on screen, but I'm hoping they appear on the Blu-ray.
They are really hilarious
because they're so on the nose. When they sing about dice, you see dice rolling, and it's just like. It's very, very obvious in a funny way.
Now, Larry, just to ask, why Tom just revealed that we're recording just the voice and the music is coming through an earwig.
Correct.
Why is that?
Well, because the bleed that would be picked up on the set and then the intercutting between each angle, you would now hear the song chopped up. So we need to have them just singing, a cappella, and then we put the music in later. And then we treat the voices. We have control now of the voices. Each person's on their own track, and we can equalize them and manipulate them and put them in the acoustic space that is the club. And we can make it cheesier by making it a little more roomy or more intimate by drying it up a little bit more. And then we can also treat the song. We can make it sound like it's more in that space. So it's important to have a clean recording, and Philip Palmer, our production sound mixer, does a terrific job of that.
He sure does.
And I had heard that they did a couple of takes with the music married to the actual audio of them singing. And they said, look out for that. But they all had it on the mix track. And when I was editing, I was like, everything, this is going to be bad.
Right.
And that's how good Phil is that I didn't realize that was his mix track. Everything was separate. It was all fine. And
he had done years of Glee, so he was very familiar with having live performers and earwigs and playback.
It sounded great.
Yeah.
It was a blast to edit that scene, too, because you've got an incredible performer like Michael and Bob, an amazing performer who is known for his bad singing. And my friend Cash, who used to work with Bob, actually, when it came on, said out loud, "Oh no, is he going to sing?" in a fun way. And it is. It's such a great performance.
And so good to have Michael McKean back. And when we were first breaking this episode, we almost thought about just ending it at the karaoke bar, of ending it on this high note of these guys singing together. But the more we talked about it, the more we felt like there had to be more, just them more intimate and together. We came up with this scene where, so many times in Better Call Saul, we've seen Jimmy taking care of Chuck and caring for Chuck. And this is just a moment in time where it's Chuck is the one who's pulling Jimmy's shoes off and making sure he's doesn't fall down and hit his head, and just caring for him. And it's really sort of one of the best moments they've had together as brothers. And we just wanted to have that, have the audience see this special moment, which just makes what comes later that much sadder.
I was on the set. Wasn't on the set for most of this episode. I was on the set for that scene that we just finished, and I just watched one of the masters, and it was perfect. This act, Michael and Bob were just so wonderful in that scene that we could have just run one angle. I think it's better the way Chris cut it, but it was riveting. It was riveting to be there and see them perform that.
He's got a 3.5
and
jump on us.
Here we go.
Here we go. And I'll just talk about one of our mistakes.
Oh yeah,
that we made in the writers' room, where there's two very separate timelines going on here, which is Mike trying to get Werner, which is a very short, which happens in a day, and then as we conceive the Jimmy stuff, we thought, well, that can't all take place in one day, so it happens over several days, but we have to cut back and forth between these two stories. So what you saw at the beginning of this act was sort of a residual leftover of a concept we have, where we started each Mike act with a flashback.
You just kind of rewind a little bit so you understand
where we were in time.
Yes, and Chris cut it that way, and it worked fine.
It felt weird,
but it just
definitely felt off.
Instead of speeding up and getting you excited for the story again, it just kind of slowed it down in a weird way. It just didn't quite work. So Chris and Peter, had sort of rewrote all the scenes down on index cards again.
Chris, we went back to the index cards.
Back to the index cards, and kind of we just decided that we're not going to notice the time changes, and just there's a scene coming up later at the library, which was originally set at night, which luckily we shot in the daytime. It would have just screwed everything up even more. But now I don't think we noticed what the time problem.
The time, it's interesting because we were very fixated on it, and I remember the day that I realized this was going to be a problem, and we spent probably a day or so figuring out, okay, this is how we're going to handle it, because we've done things like that before, where you do a little rewind, and it just didn't turn out to be necessary. We reorganized a few things, and Chris was great. I remember one Sunday morning, I was pacing around, and Chris just wrote down in just probably 12 cards of the key sequences, and we started moving them around. And it turned out all we had to do was the smallest thing. We just moved one scene earlier, and suddenly it all clicked.
Mm-hmm.
It all clicked. But there's that old saying that editing is your final rewrite, it's in this case it was absolutely vividly true. This scene, by the way, just slays me. Bob. I don't even know who he reminds. He reminds me a little bit of Steve Martin in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, because he's you could believe that those people believe him, but you're seeing him perform, and he actually says something in a moment. If you have the subtitles on, he actually says, "Boo hoo,"
Which was, I'm always asked, do the actors ever improv anything? And they, majority of the time, stick to the script. But then Bob had this great idea to say "boo hoo" out loud, which just made me. I just thought it was so funny, so we kept it.
You better pace yourself, though. It's gonna be a long day.
Yeah. But
And the last time we saw Jimmy and Kim, they had this kind of semi-resolution after that enormous fight on the rooftop. And now they seem to be, Kim, I think, I love the way Ray plays this, because you can see Kim she's not back where she was at the beginning of the previous episode. She's still feeling her way forward about him and with him and trying to understand him.
I think she's still very concerned about him. And she realizes that this is not normal behavior or a normal situation for a grieving brother.
It's true. It's true. It's kind of awful. This is an effect shot.
This is all digital.
Yeah, because the chicken coops are gone
Yeah.
in real life.
The chicken coops are gone. We no longer utilize that location where the chicken farm was. We had an actor who couldn't walk. We had a whole lot going on.
Movie magic.
That's true. That's true. And then in the previous episode, Bob lost his voice for a day.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just been...
And Tony Dalton is elsewhere, by the way. He's not...
Yeah, this is a whole other...
He's not in this location.
This was actually... It was very hard to... we had an idea about how this could work, but it was really hard making sure that everyone understood it and that everyone was on the same page, that using two separate locations and so on and so forth. Just for that little scene.
What else do you think was in that cooler?
A kidney?
He really, he could be anything. He prepared for the whole day.
He was going to be out there a while.
Oh, Fred.
Poor Fred.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this,
James Johnson.
James Johnson's so good.
He's very believable.
It's also fun seeing Mike play the needy elder. It's such a different note for Jonathan Banks, and he's so worried and earnest, and I just love it. I love how this piece of social engineering. And by the way, this Adam Bernstein, who directed this, is just one of our go-to directors. I think he probably directed. Michelle McLaren directed the most episodes of Breaking Bad, but I think Adam was this directed the second for sure. And for some reason, Adam and I were paired up a lot on Breaking Bad. I learned so much about filmmaking from working with Adam, and also just he's just a wonderful, wonderful guy, and he has a mind that works so much faster than mine. He's really a very special, perceptive director. He's also one of the few people in the business who moves back and forth between drama and comedy just effortlessly. So he directed the HBO prison show Oz, which is one of the most horrifying things you're ever going to see in your life. And he also originated 30 Rock, the Tina Fey show. So he just has
directed the pilot for Fargo.
And the pilot for Fargo. And so he's just a really unique talent. I was so happy he came in and was able to direct the season finale, because this wasn't our original plan. Our original plan was actually to have Vince direct the season finale and Tom direct episode 9. And Tom had a health bump and so we weren't able to follow through that. I'm still damn sorry about that. But you will see Tom Schnauz back in the director's chair very soon.
And he got his little hands on a number of episodes.
Oh, yeah.
As a result.
I don't think his hands are that little.
No,
Yeah,
they're
his hands are pretty regulation size.
No, they're small. Well, Victor showing up there.
And this Travel Wire sounds like a real place. And we went through like a million different names trying to get clearance on this fucking store. It just, every name got rejected one after the other.
Because it's really we wanted a Western Union. It's supposed to be a Western Union. And
we couldn't get that.
And Western Union, it turns out.
And I understand because.
Yeah, they didn't want to have
something bad happens
yes.
in an upcoming act.
Yes.
Spoiler.
Here, Giancarlo's ankle is not working, but he's seated.
That's true.
That's true. That's true.
Was that we revealed in previous
yes
DVD commentary that he had a broken leg?
It's revealed in the previous one.
Great. Okay.
We definitely talked about it on the podcast too, so it's out there.
So we came back and worked with Giancarlo, and he's not at the location. We shot it at the same location where we shot the guys, the binocular POV of them walking. So that what you're seeing out Giancarlo's window right there is all matted in from another take. We didn't think ahead to get a shot. It was just stolen from a Chris, how does that work?
We just found a plate that we could use that was sort of facing the same direction from a different piece of footage.
That's this shot.
Yeah, and then so we put that outside the window.
Originally, so what you saw outside of his window was this blue sky, which just didn't look right. So we had to add that background.
Isn't there? But you also said that when we shoot through the front window back towards when we're gunning right at Giancarlo's face, what's behind him then?
Marshall Adams, our DP, suddenly started sticking apple boxes on C-stands and show cars and just sort of set them up behind them in these geometric shapes, which made it look like just Albuquerque buildings back there, which is just the craziest thing. So he just created this background, which before there was just sort of nothing back there, and now there's these out of focus shapes that just look like, oh, there are buildings back there.
This is movie magic.
Or movie deception.
Movie deception. I love things like that, which are all done in camera and are very relatively low tech.
And speaking of movie deception, Chris, you kind of stole that shot.
Yeah, that's him. I think he's listening to Adam or something. Yeah, we didn't really have that moment.
So it's just so funny to you get to scroll through all the footage to see these accidental moments that you can use elsewhere.
That's why you have to, as an editor, you have to watch all your dailies, no matter what. And don't just go line by line. This is a little advice for any aspiring editors out there, because you'll find little pieces. Sometimes the accidental stuff you end up needing, or it ends up being some of the best stuff. I know that was the case on Breaking Bad for sure. There'd be little bits and pieces that Kelly and Skip would use, and Lynn.
So you have to sit there and watch, because the crew will shoot over an hour or two of dailies a day sometimes.
Per scene sometimes.
Yeah,
depends on the director.
Yeah.
And Michelle McLaren shoots the most, and probably Minky as well. And it's all great stuff, and so it's a different problem. Your problem becomes, I have too much good stuff, and I have to figure out which of it to use. It's a good problem to have.
That's a good problem to have. Of course, when I'm directing, it turns out we barely put it together with baling wire and tape.
That is simply not true.
We do manage to get there.
Definitely not true. Well, this turned out to look great.
Yeah.
Where was this location? This is
Hispanic Cultural Center.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful building and campus.
It's one of the reasons I mentioned earlier this is supposed to be a night scene, but because we got this location, you get these beautiful giant windows. You want to shoot there in the daytime because it looks fantastic, but also I don't think they would let us shoot there at night, so there was also that.
I assume that meant HHM.
And behind us, behind camera, there's this great prop that we never really get to see.
Oh.
It's the Chuck McGill timeline, which our art department and just they put so much loving care into, and you only kind of see it in the shots when you're out in the courtyard, facing. It's like way in the background, out of focus. But
that thing is just wonderful. It goes through all of Chuck's life and his education and achievements.
I have some pictures of it. I'm going to post on Twitter.
It's wonderful, and I'm kind of hoping we find a use for it in the future, or it's going to end up in my living room.
And we saw John McGurl bring appetizers to some of the partners at Davison, Maine. It was a fun callback.
Absolutely.
Another episode Adam Bernstein directed.
Do you think these UNM kids are still in college? Are they still at UNM?
Absolutely.
It's a lot of scamming that they get to participate in.
Well,
got to make money for college.
I mean, they're hardworking young folks, and I'm so happy to see Haley and Josh and Julian every time we can work them into an episode. And it's interesting because we haven't really said out loud what the plan is until here. This is the scene. This is a tricky scene. We kind of had to. This is the one where we're attempting to bring the audience into the circle of what the plot is, what the play is between Jimmy and Kim. And again, I love the way Kim handles him here. The distance between them. I had a friend ask me if that was CG Ash.
Really?
and
it's just an accident, and Ray just goes with it. I just love it.
It just feels real. It feels like a thing that really happened, because it did.
It did.
in his inner chambers.
Now, Larry, this is a scene that's mostly dialogue. It's outdoors. What are you having to work on here?
Well, we try to make it as textured as it is visually. So it's lots of the devil's in the details, as you know. So our job here, it's a windy day. It happened to be kind of a noisy scene, surprisingly, because even though nobody's moving, there's a lot of air. And so my job is to kind of reduce the noise and keep the intelligibility up. But we barely hear the party from inside. That's kind of trickling out. And we have all the kind of indigenous ambiences that would be prevalent in New Mexico. So there's like birds and insects and the wind. And that's all legitimate scenery, I take it, right? Those trees.
It's all real, yeah.
So, it's basically just adding layers to sell where we are without actually seeing it. So lots of different tracks. That's such a great shot.
And here we are. We don't do any kind of background rear screen projection stuff. We're old fashioned. We stick the camera on the car and either drive with it, or as we see here, this is a tow rig. There's a big truck with lights and everybody piled in, watching Jonathan on monitors as we drive through Albuquerque.
And it is, I have to say, as a director, I hate doing it this way because you can't be in the car with the actors. You're talking to people on walkie-talkies. It feels very removed and technical, but the results are really good.
Yeah, way more authentic than the process shots.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Such a nice touch, the moving for the gum and not the gun.
It's a typo. Tom wrote, he reaches for the gun, and Jonathan just read it as gun. We just went with
this whole sequence around it.
It was tricky.
This is a very complicated sequence.
Oh my God.
Speaking of lots of cuts.
This is one of the scenes. Adam Bernstein is also a talented storyboard artist, and he will storyboard a scene like this to the nth degree. And I got to see his process. He uses a little Post-it note. He puts Post-it notes down and writes what the shot is, see you, Mike, or whatever, and then he pulls the Post-it note up and draws it. And he will have them, and I'm assuming he did it on this day.
He did, yeah.
He puts them all up on an easel and crosses them out
as we go. Yeah, it's a really efficient way to do it. Yeah, and when I direct, I do storyboards. And the first time I directed in Breaking Bad, I had a complicated sequence, and Nina Jack, who was our AD back then, now our producer, but she took my storyboards and did the very same thing that Adam did here, when it was like, wow, that just helps you. So it helps the crew. Everybody sees what's going on. You see what you get. You just get a sense of the day of how far behind or how ahead you are. It really helps.
And for a sequence, there's no way to shoot a sequence with this many setups and this many technical setups, which, there's all this crane work and stunt work. You just you'd never get it done if you walked in at the beginning and said, okay, where do we start?
Yeah, all this stuff is one solid day of shooting.
Which seems almost impossible, the number of shots that there are, the number of setups, but also it's a very small amount of screen time. So on a television schedule, that's a lot of time to spend on very few minutes, but it's necessary. And the fact that he was able to do it, I think, is a real testament to his preparedness and skill, and also the crew just being ready and getting great stuff.
Right. Everything in one day except for this shot. This was done this is a specialty shot that was gotten on stage.
Because it's not really inside that machine.
And it's not really gum either, right? Didn't you say it was some kind of...
Yeah, I forget what our effects guys, Bob House, and what they used to create that, but it's more like what you kids would use to make slime type of thing.
They pump through a little hose. And actually, you can see, if you rewind and you watch it closely, you can see the hose. And we saw the hose and we were thinking, do we have to digitally take it out? Instead, we just colored it. So we took the green color out of the hose.
Black and white.
Yeah. So we took the color out of the hose and now
save some money on a digital effect there.
That we want to put the money where it's going to make a difference.
Also to protect the health of our post supervisor, who had Alicia Weaver had her hands full with so many stuff, and she did a fantastic job.
She's remarkable.
This great portrait.
Oh my gosh,
that's Spectre.
That's a wonderful portrait. It's actually, interestingly enough, it's actually a photograph that our scenic artists painted on top of. That's
right.
That's not a proper sentence. I know there's a better way to put that, but it's really a wonderful piece.
I've had a lot of people, more than ever, reach out to me about this particular sequence.
Love it.
And this definitely was as scripted. It was scripted as them being cut off, not necessarily specifically. And then you wrote, really, they performed full speeches, at least an opening paragraph. And then we just found, and they all entered and everything, and then we just found the rhythm when we were cutting it and just kept cutting it shorter and shorter. And it was really fun. I'm glad that people enjoyed it.
This is...
wonder how these kids felt.
I think the sequence, some of the sequence, one of the reasons I love this sequence is just because as a father of somebody who just went through the college admission process, this seems very... familiar and meaningful to me. and it's a great example of everyone working together, but also of Adam Bernstein's ability to move from action to drama to comedy. It's just remarkable.
Did they all get that?
Yes, they did.
I love that.
Of course.
Here's where we are. Raymond Chen, 6 votes. Duncan Springer, 6 votes. Marcy Ramirez.
He's back to the tie bar.
I remember...
Pulled his shit together.
Yeah.
I remember writing this. The thing that was the hardest thing was just figuring out the number of votes and how the vote that was. I think Ariel, our writer's assistant, helped me try to understand what the right numbers were, because this is it's like aphasia for me on some of these things.
Christy Esposito, that was me. And for what it's worth,
it's really such a bummer seeing, especially at the beginning of this episode or the beginning of episode 6 of this season, seeing Jimmy, a world that maybe he hoped for, and then realizing he's never going to have that world. And we already knew that because we've seen Breaking Bad theoretically. But it's really effective and sad. And I just wanted to call you guys out on that. You've really made us sad this year.
Okay.
You're welcome.
A lot of crying from Chris McCaleb.
Well,
yeah, maybe I'm going through my own stuff probably.
If the television show can be therapeutic for you, then it's all.
It's just making him sad, Peter. It's not helping him.
My life is a mess.
Well, I will say though, I think the greatest thing is if the audience can feel something, truly, really have an emotion. It makes I feel like our work is worthwhile.
And there's such nuance between these two here, which is so nice that Hamlin gives him a little bit of consideration and kindness for just a second.
Yeah, but
It's
not
just
enough
such-
to change everybody's mind.
Exactly.
Well, Howard has to be able to see, I think, what we all see, which is that Jimmy's
himself.
identified with this young woman.
How do we get those tote bags?
I know we have to.
And Abby Quinn here does such a great job
Oh,
as Christy.
man. She's really great.
She
Just the
is-
reaction. She's getting the worst pep talk ever here, and it's just she's going through so much. We should talk about the sound work on this scene.
Oh my god.
Well, I will just, before we do, I want to say Abby Quinn is great, and I believe she's in the new movie that's being made of Little Women, which Bob is also.
Oh my
in.
God.
So I believe
Well, that's
that they.
Reunited.
Which one of the women is Bob playing?
That's
One of the littlest women.
There's a question.
I think he's Joe.
But what about this? What about the sound here? It sounds great. I don't know what there is to say
Seems
about
pretty
it.
easy, right?
This was a very noisy scene. Again, the natural wind situation caused a lot of residential fill, traffic, broadband noise, which is kind of right in the range of the human voice. It's very different if you have a hum or a tone that's easy to get rid of. This is like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So if you clean it up, so goes a lot of the tonality of the voice. But we have a lot of tools, and again, we start with great material. Philip delivers us a track that has good signal-to-noise ratio, so it can withstand shaping and noise reduction and equalization without falling apart, and it's still all intelligible and smooth. So seemingly a very innocuous, simple stand and talk scene, but actually a little more complicated.
And there is actually some ADR.
Yeah, there is a little bit of ADR. Our wonderful dialogue supervisor, Catherine Madsen, did a fantastic job capturing performances, and my job is to weave in and out of them. And we try to use as little as possible. So we do these little grafts of a little piece of production and do a little bit of ADR and then back to production where the noise is absolutely too contaminated to use. So
You guys do a wonderful job. And, the voice, Bob's voice especially, is so important to this show. And it's a funny thing that sometimes, if it's not used well, noise reduction, kids kind of start making all the voices feel thin.
Yeah.
Right? And they have less resonance and emotional impact. It's not a tech. We talk about a lot of things, I always say this, that sound technical. And there is a technical aspect, but ultimately it's all about the art and the impact. And if the voice of the character is thin, and you just feel it's not all there, somehow the scene doesn't land as well. And that's an example of a scene which I always loved, and I loved in the editing room. But then once you guys restored Bob's voice,
Right.
it went to a new level.
Thank you. Well, he has such a specific, unique voice, as you say, and if you take too much out of it, then it's no longer really delivering the impact, as you say, emotionally.
This is such an interesting scene too, because
And Bob really went after that steering wheel.
Oh yeah.
We were supposed to shoot a insert shot for another episode, and he banged up his hand so badly we couldn't use him because he just went for it in the scene, which is great.
I think there's a lot of reasons for this scene. I find it really touching, and you can think about a couple of ways of looking at it, why he's crying there. And maybe it's about Chuck. Maybe it's about feeling the things that he just said to that young woman and what he's become. But one of the things it does on a mechanical basis is it tells us he's truly upset. He's not faking. He's not faking his emotions, which is always something that's tricky with his character, because especially as this episode goes on, he's so good at faking that we want to make sure that sometimes we draw a line and say this guy he's not just a con artist in every aspect of his life.
There's the great Tony Dalton here at Lalo. So good. And Chris, you did such a great job with the whole episode, and this scene too. You added these little pauses to when Fred says something. There's this little bit of a pause before Lalo responds that you can just see the wheels turning in his head, which is just great.
And the pacing, it's just off enough that you're kind of with Fred, thinking something's not right about this guy. This doesn't feel right exactly. Yeah, Tony's great, really, really.
And we had lots of discussions in the writers' room about, a place like Travel Wire is going to have bulletproof glass and locked doors, and how is he going to get to Fred? So I went online and just typed in robberies at certain establishments not to be named, and I found one online where somebody did this very thing you're seeing. So this is based on reality.
I remember we were talking about it before lunch. We went off to lunch and we came back from lunch and you said, "Hey, what about this?"
And that's real.
Yeah.
That is an actual stuntman jumping from the ceiling.
It's insane.
It's actually insane.
Because I'm like, if I did that,
We'd be in the hospital.
yeah,
Forever.
Right.
And
I'd be inside out when I hit the floor.
I think the stuntman landed on it was a little platform with like styrofoam cups in between it or something that was creating
That's
a
right.
little bit of a cushion for him.
But still, that's nothing.
Oh yeah.
That's a big jump.
Poor Fred.
Fred's dead.
Is he?
Well, look at him. Your feet don't go like that if you're alive. Twisted up in the background like that. And the blood on his face. And here's
blissfully unaware.
Here's Werner.
Really dumb mistake. He should not have.
He loves his wife.
Yeah.
I get.
That's the lesson out there, people.
Rainer-
Don't love your wife so much.
Rainer, I love Rainer's able to bring an innocence to this late middle-aged man. It's actually, I think, a very difficult thing to pull off. His kind of cheerfulness and his lack of a hidden agenda is just terrific. He's a real find. We watched.
So good.
Everyone else in the world is aware of this movie, The White Ribbon, which is a German movie from just a couple of years back. Was I believe, an Oscar nominee, and he's fantastic. Of course, a very different character. He's fantastic, and just watched that a few nights ago. He's just wonderful.
Is Mr. Fring very upset?
What do you think? Please let him know.
Some more real driving.
More real driving back in our tow rig.
Yeah, those things are such a pain in the neck. I'm gonna keep saying it,
but they look so much better than what you see on other shows.
That's
which
true.
I'm just every time I see rear screen projection on another show, my eye goes to it. I can't concentrate.
I stopped listening to the characters.
On what's that? Yeah,
I know. It's true. I'm waiting for there to be a better way to do this because I keep on complaining about it, but there's nothing else that'll give you the highlight of the sun there and the way that the light is on the back seat and all the different aspects that just make it feel real.
Stop pouring. It's very straightforward.
I think we added a little bit of shake to the camera.
We
in
did.
those scenes too. Yes.
We did.
It felt we wanted to.
You can only go so fast.
Yeah.
So it just helps make it look like you're really traveling.
We wanted to make the apparent speed a little faster as if Lala's approach.
This is fun. His figuring it out.
Michael, is that you?
See, Vince claimed that didn't make him laugh, but it's funny.
I think it's funny. Well, if everybody thinks something's funny, then maybe I don't know.
Hear another damn word out of you.
Jonathan Banks, he's so good.
He is.
As much as I like to give him shit.
Yeah.
He's just damn good.
And vice versa. Jonathan likes to call Tom the Little Prince. Does he still do that?
He does.
You earned it.
When I was in the hospital, he visited me and brought me a book of The Little Prince.
That's very thorough.
This is one of the scenes we moved.
It's really the only scene you moved, right? Except for the one at the beginning.
Cemetery.
The cemetery, yeah, was moved to help because it looked like Lalo was watching
Mike,
yeah. It was a little confusing.
It gets better and better.
It's so nice to see these characters at different emotional places, kind of perpetually out of sync with each other.
Right. And this was important to show that the scene in the garage where he breaks down and cries is that how do we know he doesn't come back and tell Kim, oh, I had this breakthrough and I had all these emotions. He just comes through the door and like nothing happened. He just stuffs it back down, way back down again.
I like that she subscribes to the note card method. Like our writers.
It's the best way, people.
Yeah, we're going to get Kim Wexler in the room, and she's going to help us break episodes.
She's a solutions-oriented person.
She is.
I'm still
That guy.
Well, you gotta say something.
That was another change Bob wanted to make. He originally says they look at me and they see Jimmy McGill, and he didn't. He wanted to say the words "that guy," which does make more sense to me. I think.
I think we pitched a couple of things and we landed on that. I happened to be there for that, and we pitched things around a little bit. It's you know, if it's the great thing about this process is you get to keep refining things as you go.
And there's the letter that we see in episode 3. And we're always looking backwards. And when we broke episode 3, we weren't sure we'd ever see the letter again. But then we came to this moment.
Wait here.
And because we're always looking at where we came from, we thought, oh, let's bring the letter back, and he's going to use that as a tool to help Chuck stand up for him, just like we saw at the very beginning of the episode when Chuck vouches for him. He's going to hopefully do it again here.
Now, I hate to give things away, but this location is actually a stone's throw from our studio. It's actually very close to where Kim wiped out towards the end of last season. And there's, we're overlooking Albuquerque, although that's, in story terms, that's not where we are. But as we're looking at that shot of Mike, we're looking pretty much straight at the airport. And we had a problem on the night where there was just so much, you could see the runway and you could see planes landing there. And so Marshall put a series of black cards back there and put some LED lights in front of the black cards, and we created there's a little mountain right to the immediate right of Mike, and those are just black cards. blocking the airport lights.
It's very helpful to have a director of photography that was once a gaffer.
That's true. I love the fact that Marshall, he's really ready to use movie magic.
I love the analog techniques, and I had no idea until you just mentioned that. The shallow depth of field makes it impossible to tell the difference between reality and that trick.
This was a really special evening. I happened to be there for this night. It was right at the beginning of the schedule of this episode.
First day 1.
And this the whole cast came out to watch this scene. So Bob was there, and Ray and Patrick, and they were all there to watch this scene with Jonathan Reiner. And I think part of it was to watch Reiner's goodbye, but I think part of it was they all knew this was going to be there were going to be some acting fireworks, and they were right. It really came out beautifully. These two guys and these two guys just really crushed this scene. These are two performers who are just absolutely at the top.
The moment coming up when Werner realizes that he's going to die. The acting is so good there. The silence, the stuff he does. It's so complicated and wonderful.
I will repair what I broke with my own hands, but please.
You see him negotiating and then realizing and then figuring out how he can at least help his wife. And it's just desperately sad to watch each of his options disappear. And it just dawns on him moment by moment.
Such a miscalculation that he made.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What the situation is that he's in.
But all he did was go see his wife. I mean, it's just,
he didn't even get that.
He hasn't really.
He compounded the problem, Peter, by first he's drawing pictures
in
a bar and talking about stuff to strangers, and then this.
Don't drink and draw, everybody.
Ben yammering on to Lalo.
Yeah, that's sort of the nail in the coffin. We talked about if Lalo hadn't been out there and found him, there's a very good chance Werner lives, but because of Lalo and the digging, that sort of seals it.
It's rough. This is a long scene. This is.
Peter, you wrote the scene. What were you thinking?
I always knew that the script was a little bit on the long side, but in the back of my mind, I was always thinking, well, Adam Bernstein's one of our speediest directors, And so I thought, yeah, maybe it'll be a little bit, but I did not expect it to be, this big. But I just can't argue with it. I think it came out great. And by the way, all thanks to AMC, because they did not have to agree to run an extra long episode, and they did, and their support just means a lot, because there's a lot of dimensions to this business, and we're really dependent on the good graces of the folks who finance the fund.
We knew this episode would be long, but all season long we were just out of it. We just screwed up timing wise.
Oh God!
About every single episode.
Oh yeah.
Were either way too short or way too long, and it just very few of them came kind of right on the money.
That's true.
So I mean, there were whole episodes where we're just like, oh, we need to add more scenes because this is way too short.
That's right. Episode 4 had some added scenes, and then episode 7, which is a wonderful. I'm really proud of. I couldn't be more proud of. Is the shortest episode we've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Abraham Lincoln said. How long should a man's legs be? Long enough to reach the ground.
It's a real simple observation that he made.
That's Abraham Lincoln for you. This is just beautiful cinematography by Marshall Adams. He's been using, and I think we've mentioned it before, this Panasonic Vericam, which is very sensitive to light. But it's not the tool that makes it look so great. It's how he uses it, and I really feel that Marshall's perfected his technique with this particular tool, the Vericam, and it's really special.
This is heartbreaking.
Very hard to watch.
The last time you ever get to speak to the person you love, and it's just a horrible confrontation to save their life.
And we had written the whole other side of the phone conversation, and it was translated to German. He didn't seem to really. I don't think he really needed it on the night.
I will say with Jonathan Banks's bad knees that if Werner had just taken off running, he could have gotten away. I don't know why he didn't think of that.
Banks is really good with a pistol.
That's true.
He would just drop him.
He would have serpentine though.
Well, maybe he hasn't seen the in-laws.
No.
And Werner really must be sort of Spider-Man-like, having scaled that warehouse.
Well, he just went up the.
With the ladder, but
Spider-Man-like? You mean he used a ladder?
I mean, he's
That's Ladder Man.
going straight up the warehouse.
He's good. He's wily.
Oh, look at their faces.
Oh man.
Each of them is so specifically in their spot.
This is too depressing. Why are you people watching this?
Yeah, we're all starting to watch the scene, which is
the
the sign
danger
of
of these
a bad commentary track.
Yeah.
But we can't say enough about how great these two guys are together.
And this coming up is actually coming up in a few shots from now is an effect shot, which we'll mention too.
Yeah, Joey Reinisch, my assistant on this episode, had a lot of contributions throughout this episode and this scene, but among them is something that's coming up that we'll talk about.
Start talking now because it goes by fast.
Yes, that's true. So I mean, if you've seen this episode, you know how this scene ends. Not well for Werner or Mike, and as scripted, it's sort of specified that we were way, 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 way back, and that that just wasn't physically possible on the day, and so we realized it in the editing, and Joey, I basically resized it to make it you take the existing footage, make it really small, and then we created this landscape around them, which didn't look like this.
No.
This is extraordinary.
That was the editorial version to show proof of concept, and then Diane Mercer and
the Crafty Apes?
And the Crafty Apes created that shot.
Heartbreaking.
Crafty Apes, which is a good group of people in Atlanta. And I believe we hooked up with the Crafty Apes because of Melissa.
Yeah, they did some work on *Halt and Catch Fire*.
That's right.
And Lodge 49.
Here's Gail back, and here's a shot with Giancarlo, who has a broken leg. And as the camera moves off of him, we did a little switcheroo. We had a body double step into frame and follow. The camera follows the body double to give the illusion that Gus could actually walk here, which was a fun thing to do. So there's our body double.
So that's not Giancarlo?
And Giancarlo was under strict orders not to be, not to be moving around. And our producer Seth Edelstein, was making sure that we weren't doing anything wrong. And he was away from set. He stepped back on as we were filming that, and he was like, "What the hell's going on? Why is Giancarlo moving?" And it was fun to be able to trick somebody on the set like that.
It's very convincing.
I didn't know until you just mentioned it. Is he just standing in place, or is he somehow propped up on a?
He's on a apple box.
Okay.
He had to have his knee on an apple box.
Wow.
And as you'll see, there was another visual effect shot coming up in the wide overhead shot of Mike looking down at him. His leg is on an apple box, and they digitally erased that and put in a leg, which is amazing.
Those are things that we try not to have to do. And by the way, Giancarlo's fine. He's feeling great. He's all healed up. We're happy about that. I love this. Yeah. Oh my God. This is one of my favorite shots, actually.
This was Jonathan's last day of shooting on season 4. And Giancarlo's as well, I think.
Yeah, Jonathan had to hit it to Europe.
Yeah. And we can't not mention David Costabile, how fantastic it is to have him back. He's so good.
And he runs between the raindrops to come to us from his other shows. His other show, Billions.
Right. That scene was shot on a Saturday, yeah, I think just for different reasons. To try to accommodate the different schedules and just the season was winding down, and we only had Giancarlo for a limited time because of his he had just getting over the pain he had suffered through for his leg.
Chuck wrote a great letter. It's not just that.
Have there been ideas about costume at this point in the season, as far as the colors that the characters are wearing? Has there been a sense of a transformation?
I think they're kind of back where they were here. Jimmy and Kim seem very much back where they were. I'm saying that like I remember.
Well, color is used differently than we did on Breaking Bad, where Breaking Bad, it was often about the transition and an evolution. On this show, it's about withholding and utilizing color, red in particular.
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't have a prepared statement, but I do.
Bob is fantastic in this scene, but I also have to say Ray is incredible.
Oh,
it's like
man.
she's silent behind him, but so much. I think because we're with her and seeing, we're sort of watching through her eyes almost, that she helps us, the audience, feel the emotions that we're feeling as we watch him.
Yeah, she's convinced, and then she gets duped, just as we are.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's very specific. So in that reaction, she's like, I don't know if this is going to work.
Yeah, because she's
going off book.
She's Ray is just incredible. But they both are. Ray, in this case, though, Ray is giving us so much without a word.
Mm-hmm.
And she makes such a progress through this scene.
I never saw her happier.
Must be really uncomfortable to be Jimmy McGill.
Well,
so many lies, so much deception.
He seems to enjoy it sometimes.
he does.
He gets to date Kim Wexler. I don't know. I think it's a pretty good deal overall.
I was just going to try to.
And if you watch this multiple times, I think Bob does just so much here, and I think he does these little things that tell you that it's not true. I felt he was important he felt it was important to have these little bits where it came through that this is a deception, and it's really subtle. And I can't even describe what it is, but I know he's doing it here because we talked about it on set. I mean, there's so many layers.
He didn't want it to be pure artifice,
right,
that he's in complete belief here, and then he denies it later. I think it's very complicated because I think you could argue that Jimmy's using real emotion here, as he has in the past, real emotion for a bad end,
as a weapon.
As a weapon. So
it's through this process he's actually becoming a great actor. It's contrasting him at the scene at the grave site where he's saying boo-hoo, and his acting is downright terrible. It's funny because he's so bad at it. He's just, he's pretending to be sad, where here he's tapped into some, something that our greatest actors do, which is, like you said, to draw on this real emotion and to do something that's not real, apparently.
It's like he's exercising some part of himself.
Hmm.
We have our makeup artist, Ashlyn Padilla's dad, is on this committee. He's a real New Mexico-based attorney.
That's awesome. It's a family affair here on Better Call Saul.
So, for a guy like me, I did lousy in school.
Melissa, what was, from your point of view, what was the biggest challenge of this season in your eyes?
I think Giancarlo's accident was really, it complicated a lot of things, and affected 3 different episodes. So that was just a logistical and financial challenge to work through. This episode had a lot of location challenges. It took a while to find that pool that Werner is at. It took a long time to find the right spot to end the episode.
That's true. That's right.
And, because it was a long script, we had to get to a lot of places and marry them together.
Yeah, this is a very complicated episode. There's just a lot to it.
And there were so much casting in it too. Yeah. And when you guys originally wrote the script, it was like quiet lawyer, older lawyer, younger lawyer, chatty attorney. Like there were like a zillion different iterations of lawyer. That was hard.
Well, that was one of the smart things that you guys did was say, can we use, these are lawyers who we've seen before on the show. And that's one of the things that gives it a feeling of continuity, of integration. That was a huge improvement. And also, by the way, if you cast somebody and they're good, you just want them back.
Mm-hmm. Peter DeSeth style.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, it's the great thing that we can watch the episodes and learn from them. But there was Giancarlo's accident. That was threw us for a loop. I don't remember us ever having quite that kind of problem before.
Which is amazing because the number of people we deal with that are involved in the making of these episodes, you're just sort of surprised that people get hurt and are taken out of commission.
That's true.
You're just amazed it doesn't happen more often.
The nuance of Ray's performance here it can't be overstated. It's
Hello,
incredible.
Academy.
Watching Kim catch up to this is so heartbreaking.
Dodge bullets, baby. And you were right.
What a deception.
He's fully transformed here, it seems.
But he believes she's on board.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Blows by her. And then this last shot of her is so revealing.
Let's do this thing. Oh, and sweetheart, I'm going to...
And he calls her sweetheart.
What a Saul Goodman move.
That is totally,
This is all stuff. It's interesting we're recording this right now, just as we're getting started breaking season 5, because we've been taking apart every moment of this. Every frame.
That shot right there.
Oh man.
Ouch.
Wow.
Oh,
what a
bummer.
Season closer. Man.
I'm worried about Kim.
Yeah, really.
What about you guys?
Kim.
I'm worried about Fred. Is he still on the bottom of that.
He's still
treble
there.
So
wire.
sorry to tell you, Tom.
Werner's still alive, though, right? That was a fake.
Mike-
They were faking out.
Mike missed.
Mike missed.
Yeah.
He just fainted at the same time as Mike was pulling the trigger. Well, it was a hell of a season.
What a group of talented professionals.
That's remarkable.
Amazing show.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Till next season.